Hey, hey.
Shoo-be-doo-be-doo.
Strangers in the night.
Need a rinse.
Silver Fox.
Not for much longer.
As if by magic.
All right. We are live.
Ooh,
Ooh.
Oh, there you are.
hey.
There we are.
Hey.
Well, I'm here with 3 members of Magenta: Christina, Rob, and Chris.
Chris.
Yeah, you got a point. You got a point.
Yeah.
It's like she always points in the wrong direction, so you just do it like that.
Yeah. One does it.
Well, I know this is your 20th anniversary year.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of been there as a fan from the start.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice.
Oh,
Takes me back.
I can't fit into that dress anymore, by the way.
Oh, me.
No, me. I tried, but no.
I wanted to ask something about
Okay.
this album in particular. Now on the CD, the way it shows songs,
Yes.
when you actually go put the CD in, it's like they're in sections. Was that something you did on purpose, or just you didn't want to make it look like Tales from the Topographic Ocean with big long songs on each?
I think it was that. I think it looked less value with 4 songs on it. So we just made up some titles and named all the sections. But when we play it live, we just know it as White Witch, Man the Machine, and whatever it is. The other 2 are.
Yeah, because the one that actually there's 2 songs that I always go to on this one is White Witch, and then the final track, The Warning. Those ones, for me, kind of sums up the whole album in a way.
Yeah, that's the ones we still play live, really.
Yeah, I was going to say
We
that.
just drag that out for our last show. And The Warning gives Chris a chance to show off.
Yeah, I saw
Doesn't need an excuse.
the little clip at which show you did. It was a recent one where someone just, I guess, with their iPhone or something, they just got the part where Chris was doing a solo, and where Christina was singing a little bit, and then I guess Chris went into a solo. I think it was like about a 2, maybe 3-minute clip out of it. I put that up below the announcement for this show, so at least if someone wasn't aware of how you guys sounded, I think kind of a basic, because you guys over the years, just basically progressed, and added to your sound, which is a lot of bands don't. They the ones that started in the early 2000s tend to just stay almost like rehashing the same albums over and over again. The same style. They don't deviate, and I don't think, if anything, they should have their prog credentials taken away because they're not progressing at all. I think that it's important for bands to progress because it keeps the audience interested. It's like, what are they going to do next? And it's like you guys pretty much did that when you guys put out the second one.
Yeah, I think each album is, we try to do it different. I think we get bored. I think all of us would if it was all the same style. And I think with each album we try to vary it a bit. And I think the three of us, we listen to other stuff, not just progressive rock and just Yes and Genesis continuously. So our influences are other bands. So I think we like to bring that into the music, really, and it's just.
This is where you can see. This is where you can see all
Yeah.
the different diverse styles that you guys
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, I think there's always been like a new challenge, hasn't it? I think with each album, Rob's ideas and stuff, and then it just takes it a new way, and it keeps it exciting for us as well, doesn't it? It's an interesting.
Bored, I think. You're playing the same old style and things. And and with our singles album, I think, because me and Tina come from a pop background before Magenta, I think, we used to write in short tracks, and I think on that singles album, it was a chance to do shorter epics, in the style of prog, really. And I think, all the biggest prog bands are all the ones with the great songs and the choruses and stuff. They're the big sellers, really.
All right. Yeah. Especially when you guys put out the video for Speechless, that would right there. I was going. Now they completely did something, departed from something different. Had a between a mainstream sound and a prog sound, because the prog in it, but it had it more. I want to say accessible. More people can actually get into it that are not necessarily into prog. It's kind of like a little throwing out some bait to them and bringing them into into the music, and that's what I always used to, when friends that weren't into prog, I would tell them, I said, you got to listen to this. Was it Speechless? I'm Alive. Got to listen to those, and then I think that they'll get their foot right in the door, and then you can reel them in and say, okay, then now that you got those in your ears, you got to get the first two albums, and you can see what they're really about progressive wise. So it's like that's what I think is kind of cool, that you can walk that fine line between the two without going too far mainstream or accessible, like some of the prog bands of the 70s did into the 80s, because they were more interested in the hit single and the actual music. I think that's where they kind of went wrong. They should have just concentrated on the music, and if a hit single came out of it, then that's great.
But I think Magenta have always been about the melody, just a strong melody, and songs that we often do. Well, once a year we do a stripped down version in a club just outside of Cardiff called Acapella, and it's sort of like excuse me, like semi-acoustic, unplugged a little bit. We have maybe an oboe and a cello and violin, and sort of we do it slightly differently. And I think then that's a testament to how strong the songs are, because they still, with totally being stripped down with all the big production and everything, they are still really good songs with strong melodies. So
yeah, I saw part of one of those rockapella shows where you did a Kate Bush song, and when I was playing it, my girlfriend, who was a huge, I kind of turned her on to Kate Bush, and she's like, always, Kate Bush, I love this. So when she heard it, she kind of peeked into the room and said, "What are you listening to?" And I said, it's a band called Magenta, the one that I'm going to be talking with today. She says, "Oh wow." She says, they do that songs? And I said, "Yeah." I said, they do a lot of different stuff. So it was kind of neat to hear, because I think Kate Bush's voices, even though from a listener standpoint, you don't hear it, but if you start listening to it, it's like it's a very complex sounding voice. And I heard someone that was down in Australia that did a I guess an experiment where he sang in that high octave of what she's doing, and just watching his facial expressions while he was doing it, and looked like he was turning blue a couple times because he was running out of air, but he nailed it. I think it was Wuthering Heights. He did that.
Yeah, it's very high.
And I was like, I felt bad for him. He was turning blue. So I was like, I can see how it's, from an audience standpoint, sounds like there's nothing to it, but there's a lot to it,
Yeah.
I got turned on to her by my friend when I was working at a record store back in the early 90s. And ever since, it's like, the female voices in Prague have always been, I've always been drawn to that because it's like, you almost always just hear a majority of male vocals. When you hear female vocals, it gives to me a nice contrast to the music, and so it's like when I first heard the first Magenta, I was like, I was like, okay, I'm waiting for this band to put out more stuff, and it was like, years later, it's like you put out a lot of stuff, like I got this one, guys.
Oh yeah.
And I know you did it separately, and then you put it in your correct order as you originally wanted. And that was something. That was another epic sounding thing, but it was like it had a nicer, almost human story, whereas like on the first one you were talking about, witches and machines.
I think that album, the Home album, was sort of more influenced by all the sort of American songwriters, James Taylor and things like that, and British writers like Elton John, where the songs were a lot more stripped back, and they still had prog bits in there. They still throw a bit of prog in there for this, But
Yeah, it's like Americana road movie with music.
Yeah, it was, and I think it's going back to what you said about the shorter songs. The reality is, in all the biggest selling prog bands like Pink Floyd and Genesis and even Yes, I think it's the long songs are just a collection of short songs thrown together. So whenever we write stuff, especially some of the longer tracks, it's like 4 or 5 pop tunes all sewn together to make it into this long epic, and because I think if it was just one long whittle and guitar solos and complex time signatures, I think people, unless you're a muso, would find it really hard work, I think. And I think that's why the more successful crossover bands, prog bands, were the ones with the songs.
Yeah. The ones, when I was talking to a few other bands that, I noticed that there is some prog bands that go right into the studio that think that they have to put those long songs or else they'll, again, lose their prog credentials, which I think is ridiculous. If you have a long song, you have a long song. If you don't, it's just, like one of my favorite bands from the 80s, IQ, on their first album, to me, their most complex song was Under 3 Minutes. So it's not a length, it's not so much the requirement, it's the subject. So I guess going back to the quality over quantity. Some of the diehard, or I want to almost call them snobs, that that they need have long songs and complex time signatures, and all the instruments have to have like these massive solos, where sometimes they feel like they're forced. And bands such as yourself, it seems like it just, at least from an audience standpoint, it feels like it's just flowing right out, and you can just capture it on now on the computer when you're recording it. So that's
I think you've got to be brutal and quality control. I think when you're writing and stuff, and especially I think when we make the record, I think half of it gets thrown out really. So if the song survives to be 20 minutes, then usually 20 minutes have been thrown out because it's excess. Doesn't need it really in the track. Really, everything's got to earn its keep really every minute. And as I said, it's down to the melodies and the tunes really. I think yeah.
Well, that's what I like about it. And plus also, any of that stuff you've thrown out, when it goes to live, if you felt like, oh, well, maybe it could have been in there, and you can add to it, because one of the things for me personally that I don't like about some bands is when they play their songs note for note. At that point, I would much rather save the money for the concert and stay at home and listen to the CD. It's like me, I don't want to hear exactly how it sounds on the CD.
We don't do that, do we? There's no fear of that with us.
No,
On the night edge.
we never played the same song twice.
No.
Lyrics or
notes.
music?
Different notes, different words.
Different words.
That's what live is about. It's
always
about
a variety.
a lot of live music is about capturing the energy at that time and the moment, because I've been to see gigs and there's been really big sort of mistakes that bands have made, but it really doesn't matter, as a fan, when you go to see a band, I think it's what you're left with. It's the feeling that you're left with, and not the fact that maybe it was note for note perfect and there were no gaffes. In fact, that's what makes it exciting, is the fact that things could go wrong at any time, and they normally do.
It's great, isn't it? Because there's always slight differences. I mean, you're always respecting the songs and aiming for the correct melodies and things like that, isn't it? I say aiming,
It's the same time.
But there's always like little nuances that are in there. It could be something in the drums, the bass, with Dan and Jiffy doing something, or it's just going off a little bit or something just here and there, isn't it? It just adds to the.
It's not to take it too serious.
Yeah,
that's the problem. You see bands who are like, "Oh, it's life or death."
Yeah.
Serious.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Magenta shine. I think we got the gear, from the records when you see the band live. It's on a knife edge, and it's a lot more fun, I think. And I think the audience feed off that, I think.
Yeah.
Rather than seeing a load of gazers, isn't it? You're looking down, it's all serious and all this. It's like, oh no, boring.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the energy. That's the one thing I love, the energy of when I see a band live. Unfortunately, the last live event I saw was Rossfest 2012, and mostly because where I live, I'm far away from everything, prog wise. That whenever a prog band would play, I think the closest place it's been is in Massachusetts, which is about 4.5, almost 5 hours away. And then with Rossfest moving from Pennsylvania down to Florida, that made that distance even further. But other than that, I wasn't really a huge concert goer, only because of the crowds, especially of the big names where you're going into those big arenas and trying to get in and out. You know, I always had a fear of who's going to get trampled over. You know, because it feels like you're fighting a mob to get into the show and then to get out of the show, and it sometimes it just kind of takes away from the experience, at least for me. So I like smaller venues where I can actually see the band. Because there was some shows that I was way up in, they call it the bleeder seats, and it's like, you got to get out the binoculars to look down and see who's who, and then you don't really hear so much of the songs. You just hear noise coming off of the stage. So
no, it's not a pleasant experience to go and see shows. I hate going to see gigs. I hate the mobile phones. That's what drives me mad. People are holding mobile phones up and you can't see the stage and everyone dancing, and it's all you can see. You're watching the concert through a 3.5-inch phone, or a C of them, really. So I'm a grumpy concert goer. I am. I hate it.
I've seen a couple of.
I am.
I saw a couple of videos on YouTube where they would talk. A couple of the big bands actually, who it was, stopped their show and pointed at someone with their camera and said, "Are you here to watch your camera, or are you here to watch us?" And it probably embarrassed the person so much that they probably put their camera down. But it's like, I understand everything now is like you're trying to capture moments, and to say, "Oh, I was there." That's the more, for some people, that's more important to them to actually being, and it's like, that's why in 2012, I think I did see a couple people in the audience have their cameras up, and I'm like, it's like, whatever, I guess it's more important to say that you were there and have proof of it. To me, I mean, the proof is the ticket stub from your concert, or if you buy merchandise, a nice T-shirt or a hat or whatever, that's to me, that's your proof. You don't need a 3 or 4 minute video clips up on YouTube to say you went there. So it's like, that's what I don't like. It's like, pay attention to the band that you're here to see, and on that, I still have not seen you guys live. So I'm hoping after this pandemic, maybe one of the festivals here in the United States will bring you guys over. So I would love to. Ever since I got that first album, I said, I would like to see these guys eventually. So I'm living vicariously through the concert video clips you guys put up. So I'm like going, okay, I'm there. I can see how they sound a little bit live, because you're seeing it through your television or your computer, so it's not quite the same, but as close as I'm going to get so far. I'm looking forward to that one day, especially when we're out of this mess. It's in which I wanted to ask how you guys handle it. Creating new music, lockdown. I've seen a lot of bands doing these lockdown videos. Like I saw, I think it was before you guys did a video where have everybody in the different squares playing their parts.
Yeah, I think that was quite a novelty at the beginning, but I think everyone's a bit tired of it now. It's only so much you can have dodgy quality and dodgy sound and vision, I think. But it plugged a gap in the beginning. But
those kind of videos, I think it kind of, in a way, at least from the audience standpoint, it's kind of the band kind of telling the audience, hey, we're still here, you know, even though we can't be out there live for you guys, you know, we're at least still here. We're, you know, what was it? When I was talking Friday with the Tangent, that he had said that was the first time they actually seen each other faces before the pandemic. So it's like a lot of people are, you know, going strict by the guidelines and, you know, staying home, staying away from people. Others aren't, you know, and those are the people that are going to make this thing last a little longer, but it should.
But we've just managed to get back together now. I think I've seen Tina in the last week, you know, sort of one of the first times for quite a few months, really. You know, we do stuff remotely, but it's nice to get back recording and working on some new stuff. And, you know, we've all been able to do bits and bobs. Chris has finished a new solo album, which is coming out 3 weeks, he said.
Oh, cool.
2 weeks.
Give us a date. Give us a date.
I know, yeah.
It's almost finished.
It's almost, in reality, it is almost done, actually. So all the tracks are there. And, you know, that's the last this year's, lockdown. Okay. The fruits. Needs a bit of sorting out, but we've just been doing bits and pieces remotely, isn't it? There was another kind of little project possibly coming up as well, a Magenta project. So doing some bits and pieces for that. Yeah,
some bobs.
Yeah, I've seen
double album. Tina's done a double album, I think. Is she?
Triple album, concept album. Solo album.
Had enough time to do it, blimey.
Yeah,
acapella. It's all acapella.
Box set.
There will be a solo album coming out
very
sometime this year. Yeah, we'll get there.
It's nearly finished. The songs are written, and the songs are there. Something good.
Well, they've been demoed for a long time, haven't they? It's just that various things got in the way, and then, you know, the proper thing got in the way, the pandemic, and but it'll be worth waiting for.
This is true. What's it called?
Oh,
yeah. I have one musician that I talked to, a guy named Robert Berry, who had worked in the 80s with Keith Emerson and Carl Palmer, the 3 album. And he told me during this pandemic, he learned how to do some of the behind the scenes stuff that he would normally let other people do, and like producing some videos and mixing and such. So he was saying, he says, from this bad thing, he says, it gave me the time to learn new things that will in the future, you know, benefit him. And I kind of think that it's almost just the same as with me doing this kind of shows. If the pandemic wouldn't have hit, I wouldn't have done these things, because everybody that I've talked to would have been extra busy with, you know, with touring and such. So it's like, I have a friend of mine that he does a similar thing, and he just celebrated a few weeks ago his 1-year anniversary of doing it. And so it was like between him and I, we're really the only ones that, you know, from a Facebook standpoint, that are doing this type of interview show, you know. And I kind of use the word interview loosely, because I don't really like to ask questions. I like to, you know, bring out stories from people, you know, things that if you get your standard questions, you may not be, you know, feel like you can elaborate on some things. At least here, you can talk about things, and, you know, and if more than a traditional interview. And that's at least for me. And plus, also, I'm not a journalist, so, you know, I don't know how to do a real traditional interview, you know, because those ones, you got to make sure you don't ask the same questions that you've been asked over and over again. it's like, I can see sometimes in some interviews where artists will be kind of annoyed at certain things, that, well, we answered that question, about maybe a dozen times. Have you took the chance to actually look us up and see what's going
I
on?
don't know.
Um,
It's nice for people to show an interest, really. It's nice
Yeah.
for us to yak a bit, really. This is about the first time the three of us have spoken, I think, for a couple of weeks, probably. Seen each other, so
Yeah.
and then we've got your next one.
Oh, that one. Oh, no, that was controversial when that came out. That caused a lot of trouble. What are they doing?
Ooh, what's going on here then?
That's a dark. That album. Let me just quickly tell you the reason why that album happened, because we played in America, and it was the Near Fest show we did.
Right.
Resulted in that album because we'd made Home, which as you said was a very melodic record, and we played Rosfest and gone down a storm, and then we were invited to play Near Fest, and we thought, oh, we got on a storm again, and we went over with our melodic rock and songs and stuff, and I thought we died a death because we weren't Whittle enough. I think the audience at Near Fest was expecting Whittle, a bit more technical stuff, and they were like, where's all the Whittle? And we were jumping around like fools on stage, enjoying ourselves, and it was as if we weren't showing enough reverence really to it all. So when we came back, I thought, we'll do it. Let's do something really, really clever and angular and a bit sort of weird and wonderful. And that's what that album came out.
And that's the one that on Laser's Edge.
Yeah.
Because before that, you did it all on your self-release.
Well, that album was released on the label as well, but I think Laser's Edge did like a deal, like an American deal to sell the album in America on that one.
Yeah, I also noticed too, like you say, angular and had a little more aggression to it.
Yeah.
Where, and again, going back to, each album has something different than the previous one. You're not as some of the bands. Some bands would rest on their laurels. Oh yeah, I put out a fantastic album. I'll just maybe do another one like it. And it's like, you got to have some diversity.
Yeah, and there's definitely diversity on that record. If anything, it's a bit too arty-farty, really, especially the beginning, because we made the record, we could never play it live because it was too complicated.
I was just, you talking about it then was just reminding me, I can remember just us being in the Pop Factory rehearsing, trying to learn how to play it, and just laughing all the time because we get about 2 minutes in and just go.
This is the problem. See, this, it was complicated for the sake of it. I remember sort of cutting up all the first 5 minutes on a computer to make it really arty because I wasn't clever enough to play it. Because I thought, right, we'll make it all these funny time signatures, and I can't do that. So I just cut it up on a computer. I thought, that sounds really clever. And then we had to come and play it.
Yeah.
And we couldn't. Well, I couldn't anyway. I couldn't count.
I think we got there in the end, but it took some work. Well,
if you watch any of the videos, we're all on stage, all counting on stage as we playing it, counting bars.
I was just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. Oh, it was all like that, wasn't it?
And it was a relief after the first 5 minutes because the rest of it was easy, but the first 5 minutes was killer. So we learned that lesson. We never did that
when
again.
we're going to do a disco album, Rob. When are we going to do a disco album?
Disco.
Funny you should say that.
Disco prog.
But the problem is I got a tendency, whatever I listen to, I think, oh, that's what we're going to do next. So whatever album you listen to last, that's the style of the next record. So at the moment, I'm listening to Bruce Springsteen. So I think we're going to have a lot of Bruce Springsteen in the next album.
Whoa. I didn't think Fritz liked that one.
Yeah, same here.
That's the one I got in the earth. Yeah. I can't remember. Yeah. Brilliant album.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of disco prog, okay, that band Pain of Salvation, when they put out this one out called Scarsick, they had a song Disco Queen, and it had that a disco sound, and then it went into their normal thing. And I think they basically with that album upset their core fans because some of the fans were expecting a repeat of the previous album, and it's like they even had a very angry song about America, and everything that was said in that song, I was like going, yeah, he's right. He's really right about a lot of this stuff he was talking about. And I found out what that all stemmed from. They were right after 9/11. They were in America, and they were going across one of the bridges in New York, and he went and took a picture. The police stopped the bus, and I don't know if he got arrested or not, but they were detained for a few hours. And I think that, and it was like, I understand from his standpoint, it was innocent taking a picture, but, tensions very high here in America after 9/11. So anyone that was paranoid could have taken that the wrong way. Why is this guy taking pictures of the skyline of New York? So like, I understand both ways, but it's like,
yeah, I think you've got to be careful. I think with bringing all that stuff into it with politics, and I try to keep, even though I'm sort of very political, I try to keep my gob shut as much as I can. But I think we did do a song about Brexit and the madness of that. Really, that was as far as we went. Really, the insanity of that. But you've got to be careful, I think, and especially on Facebook, what you say, if you get dragged into an argument, political argument.
Politics and religion, I think I just avoid. I mean, I think what I think, and I keep it to myself. So I can't be bothered arguing the point with people. So
no.
Well, those two subjects alone, everybody has their own opinion. So it's like, you can't, it's like, I can't change your mind, you can't change my mind. I basically, if they're civil about their opinions, I said, okay, well, that's your opinion, you're entitled to it, but don't push it on others. You keep it to yourself. And politics and music have been since the late 60s, so it's like, it's nothing new. And but I do see a lot of people complaining about that. They go, why are some bands bringing politics into this thing? And it's like, I have one guy responded to this one, a guy that posted that, and he basically says, how old are you and where have you been? It's like in the history books in the United States, we had so many political songs, mostly folk music, and I've done it. So, but it's like, if you haven't, you need to educate yourself and learn about things before you open your mouth.
It's just tricky. I think the whole Facebook thing is it's a nightmare. I see, so many people get dragged into things and giving your opinion on anything, on someone else's music or film or art or anything, and you always get asked your opinion on stuff, and you're like, you got to bite your tongue. You want to say stuff, but you can't, because you're never going to win the argument, especially when you see negative stuff written about the band and stuff. That's it's really easy to get drawn into an argument. If someone comes on and says your last album is rubbish, then you just got to go, well, okay, that's your opinion, really. But you can't. I see lots of people rise into it, and you're never going to win.
Right.
Because it just looks really bad, and you want to defend your thing, but you can't really. But it's a strange old place at the moment.
Yeah, I've always been into the more melodic side of music, whether it's prog or rock music. I've always been into, because I like to hear melodies. I do have some stuff where they're playing intricate notes, but not
There's
as
time and a
not,
place for it.
yeah.
You got a variety as long as it's,
Plus, also, you put in a CD. You want to, especially if you want to feel um, some good natural energy. You put in something that has some vocals and is melodic. Tells a story, whether it's about a mythological creature or if it's someone something that hit home to you guys that you wrote about, and you can cleverly disguise it in the lyrics. It's like I put my music on one of these for my car, because I couldn't carry all that stack of CDs into the car, for various reasons. It's difficult to change the CDs when you're done, and then also too trying to hide them when you're not in the car, because I know here we don't have as many car break-ins, but where I used to live in the Los Angeles area, it was a commonplace thing to hear friends tell me, my car got broken into and my CDs were all stolen. It's like, either that or they can put it in, those little CD wallets, so they can carry it with them. But, again, it's like I like the physical media, so I like to be able to, open up the CD, read the booklet, the liner notes, and see, and especially when you do it something where you have like the behind the scenes kind of video of sorts, or even if it's like a clip. I think you guys did that in, I don't know, behind the scenes. Yeah, well, here's the next one you guys did.
Ah.
oh, right.
Mm.
Yes.
And then the one I was talking about here, where you did a 5.1 mix on it, which that seems to be a very common thing nowadays, especially thanks to gentleman Steven Wilson, was doing all those classic prog albums.
Yeah. Oh, we do. Well, I like the 5.1 mixes and stuff, but the problem is not many people listen to them really because of the format more than anything. Normally people have got a system or the time. With a stereo mix, you can be in the car, as you say, playing the record. You can be anywhere, walking around. But with 5.1, you got to sit down, take the time, set up the system, and play it. I do love it.
This is one that I got Eddie Jobson
Right.
put this one out. So did a double with his second album,
Mm.
and it comes with Blu-ray of the albums together. So I wanted to hear what it sounded like in there, and it was almost as if I listened to the album for the first time.
Mm.
Sonically, it was amazing. Put on the headphones, and I was like, yeah, this is great. That's what I liked. That's where I like the 5.1.
Yeah.
It's only kind of limited to your home, or as you don't really have in cars. I don't think they have Blu-rays or DVD players, so you won't be able to do those just yet. I'm sure.
No. It is, but see, because you've got to take the time. You actually give it more attention to the music, which is an art I think people have lost at the moment. Most people do it, listen to music, but they're either doing their accounts or listen to something else or reading a book. It's all in the background, really. You don't take the time to sit down. With 5.1, you're forced to sit down, and because you've got to go through the effort of setting it all up.
It's the experience. It's a whole experience, though, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've lost a bit, really, all that. But quickly, a bit controversial. I think that all the remix stuff that people are doing, the new 5.1 mixes and all that kind of stuff, the new stereo mixes. I think it's a bit of a red herring and a bit of a cop in the loot, really. Because it's very rare that they sound better than the originals. You know, that's my experience. You know, I think it's a nice little novelty to your sort of, you know, little remix, but there's no way from a purely technical thing to mix something on an Apple Mac, which costs 250 quid, compared to back in the studio when you had a 250,000 pound analog mixing desk, which was like a living, breathing person with the, you know, the system and the studio and the band there as well, who said what it should sound like. So all this remix stuff, the 5.1 and the new stereo mixing and the new repackaging and the reboxing, is a bit of a cash cow, really. It's a novelty, but I end up going back to playing the originals because they sound so much better, because that's what it was meant to be. You know, controversial as that is, but I think, and because I've been asked a couple of times to do remixes, and I was given the stems of a well-known band to do it, and I spent like 2 weeks remixing it all and all in stereo. And at the end of it, oh, that sounds all right. And I A/B'd it to the original album. I thought, it's not as good. Why am I couldn't go through with it. So I had to pull out of the whole thing and said, you know, it's not as good as the original, because the stars were all aligned for the original. It might not sound as clear and all that kind of stuff, but there's a lot more soul in it, really, because that's what it's meant to be like. But it's a good opportunity to, as I said, to reissue the record and to get some money in for the artists who can't tour. But I don't know.
Yeah, I've noticed, you know, like in the early days of CDs, you know, how some of them, I guess their sources were, you know, kind of on the muddy side. So I can understand if they want to clean it up there. But I've seen many bands, it's like they've almost every 5 years, and I'm talking about like classic bands like Genesis, Yes,
Yeah.
you know, Pink Floyd, all the Rush, ELP, that they're putting out it feels like almost every 5 years. Well, here's a new mix. Here's a new mix. You know, it's like, to
None of them
me,
sound as good as the original.
I mean, it's nice that they have a remix, or you know, you hear maybe, or the only way I like to, if you're going to redo it, if you put like the original on one CD, and I've seen several bands that have done it where on the second CD, it's the current version of that band playing that thing. So you get to hear how the current version, you know, their interpretation.
It's an alternative version, I think. But then in the case of Genesis deleted the back catalogue, and only versions you can get are all the new versions. But you know, I think it's weird how we've gone backwards in sonic. You know, with films and stuff, we got Blu-rays and 4K, 8K, and massive TVs, and everybody wants to experience it. With music, you've gone from vinyl to CD to MP3, and everyone listens to the stuff on MP3 or listen to it on their phone. Do you know what I mean? It's weird how technology has gone backwards with music, and it's strange how, and say even the pricing and the whole streaming thing, and it devalues music, where as an art form, whereas films and stuff and paintings are still holding their value, but music has become so disposable because it's so cheap.
Right.
You should then also 30, 40 quid for a record, really, but they'd be outraged about that because you can get it for free on Spotify.
Yeah, and then with those places like Spotify, so, you know, let's say your album has 10 songs and they only like one. So basically, it's like they don't care about the other 9. They only going to listen.
No, they'll just click through to the next.
You know, with buying a CD, you know, okay, yeah, you do have that option of skipping to the next track, but it's in the whole thing's in your player, so you get a chance.
You've invested in it. You've invested your 12 quid or $12 in it. You've said that's gonna. I purchased this. I will connect with it, listen to it all, give it a fair chance. But it's like being in a sweet shop. You can just go, oh, I'll have a bit of that, I'll have a bit of that now, and I'll have variety, and you get sick at the end of it because you got so much choice.
I was going to say, Mike, you know, me hubby Mike, he comes out with these little gems every now and again, and he said that it's instant gratification for people now, because with Quality Street, for example, you can just buy like a whole tin or a whole box of those little triangles, or the ones that, rather than sticking your hand in and seeing what comes out and having a taste and seeing if you like it, people just go, no, I don't want to know about the rest of it. I just want that. And I know it's a funny analogy to make, but I think, you know, it's the same with so many things nowadays. You know, everything has lost its value and people want things instantly. And I think it just takes away. Yeah, well, it is. And we're old.
Thing,
so,
but I think even,
you know, there we are.
Even older people, because Spotify is for the consumer, Spotify is brilliant. What a bargain. You know, you paid 5 or 6 quid or whatever it is now, 9 quid a month, and you get everything, every album on a day of release, you get it. But from an industry, from a band's point of view, it's insanity. It's complete insanity, because they're not, you know, they're not even acting like a record label and putting any money back into developing artists. They just take all the profit, and it's really weird. And people are accepting it because obviously, you know, the consumer loves it. It's brilliant, but it's going to end up with less bands basically, or less quality. Because I don't know, it's a tricky one. You know, it sounds oldie, sort of like an old fart speaking, but that's, and you can't go. There's no turning it back.
Well, no, for me, I understand, and I don't know where I heard it, where someone was like going, you know, they were surprised that the musicians had to pay money for their instruments. They thought that they were using their computers, and it's like, no, we have actual instruments that we are actually playing. You know, we have equipment that we play the instruments through. You know, it's like, you know, it's not free what we're creating, and then, you know, sometimes they'll say, oh well, they're just being poor sports, you know, that they're not letting, you know, it's like, no, they're not. They need to get paid. You know, they're
like
they got you a roof over your head.
Exactly. I mean, you guys are making music that you love, but still, when at the end of the day, you need to be paid for it. You know, you can't, you know, the Spotify's, and I think there's a Pandora, and I think there's another one out there that I think I've even seen one, I don't remember the name of it, that actually said it was created by musicians. So I don't know if that's
Bandcamp is the closest thing to actually being working. Bandcamp is pretty good, but the rest of it is just legalized piracy, really.
Right.
But I think I think we're lucky with the prog rock listeners and fans. They actually want the physical copies and all the special, you know, the lovely boxes and all that kind of stuff, and
and
everything else.
But
yeah, absolutely. And
the fans value it.
Last sort of style of music that has got that. So we're very lucky, and I think people are prepared to come to shows and all that kind of stuff, and support the bands. You know, I think we got an amazing set of fans, and we're lucky we've got a core base of fans which we've had built up over the last 20 years, and it carries us forward, really, which is an amazing place to be.
Yeah, you know, that I hear a lot, you know, I like listening to, or actually reading a lot of people's comments, you know, about your band and other bands, and it's like, it's so nice to when someone actually is paying attention to the music. You know, that's, I think today's generation, they don't really pay attention to the music, and so those particular artists, the mainstream artists, aren't investing as much into it, and that's why a lot of the mainstream artists' music, they all sound very similar. It's just the only difference is who's singing it. You know, that's, you know, it's almost like there's like a what do you call it? Like a little library of sounds that everybody uses. And the only difference is, you know, if you got a male vocalist or you got a female vocalist, or someone's rapping over it, or someone's singing operatic, you know, things like that. But with music like what you're making music for people such as myself that like to pay attention to music like that. You know, to me, it's like I get a new CD from a band, I go immediately to their website and I like to find out, all the tidbits about what went on to do the album. I find it fascinating, all the different behind the scenes things that bands do. I've been very lucky that I've had a friend of mine's band that they did recordings in a studio, which was in someone's garage, and they had like the full, control panels, and everything, and and it was just for me as a fan to actually be inside of the studio watching a band create their music. And I was like, what? I mean, there was one day I was there with them for over 12 hours. It was like we went there about noon and it was just past midnight. And it was just a great experience for someone that's, a fan of the music. So, and I told the story to the guys on Friday. That particular band, they played at the Roxy on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood. So the guitar player, who was a singer, he told me, can you please go out and there's a knob to turn on. And it's like, I don't know these things. So I turned it on and I sent feedback right out into the audience, and you can hear the audience screaming. And I really, literally wanted to melt right into the stage because I couldn't get off the stage quick enough. And I told him, I said, the next time you tell me to do something like that, I will go out there, I will grab your guitar, and I will break it on stage. And he goes, oh, no, don't do that. And I said, okay, send someone that knows what knobs they're touching. I don't know a thing about this. So it's like, I had that. I can't imagine if that happened. Someone that actually was playing the instrument, that feedback to go through that small little club, and everybody yelling. And I think, luckily, I'm glad that everybody was drunk, because after the show, I think I probably would have been attacked if everybody wasn't drunk. So, it's like, and then we got your next
Oh,
Ooh.
that's 3 on the front, though, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
3 on the front. You'd never guess it.
Good.
It's a short
Hold
one
on. You were the small one with hood on it.
There's a little one in there. Yeah.
with all the flies around my head.
That was a strange album, that one, that We Are Legend. It was a bit of a... I'd run out of ideas, basically. I couldn't think of anything to do anymore. I thought we've done it all with Magenta.
You've taken too many antihistamines, Rob.
That's what it was, exactly that.
You were off your face.
I couldn't get up to reach the desk.
It was a drug-induced down, was it? Yeah.
It wasn't. I just thought, oh, what could we do? Because we've done we've been everywhere and done everything, sort of. I thought, but then I just thought one day let's try something with a load of electronics and stuff. Because the band we were in before Magenta, a band called Tripper, which me and Tina were in, which was like a sort of electro pop kind of band, sort of Eurythmics kind of vibe to it. And Speechless was actually written in that band many years ago. It's an old tune, and in that there was a lot more sort of electronics and loops and stuff. And with Magenta, up until that album, I'd really tried to avoid it because I thought Magenta was never that, really, never electronics and loops and all this weird stuff. And I thought, well, let's try that. Let's try it going a bit sort of, and that's what sort of turned me on to make the record, really, because till that point I just couldn't think of anything to do. And then from making that record, I got sick of doing all the electronics and thought, let's make a real prog record, and that's the next one. Master of Illusion is that one. That's going back to the feel of the first 2 albums, 7 in particular. It was trying to get back to the sort of the innocence and the sort of song, the real melodic, positive tunes, really. of that, and I think it shows on it. And I think it's the first album that is really a sort of a band performing on it, because Jiffy and Dan, we've been through various lineups and got the scars to show it. And
there's a book in there somewhere.
we've been through it, you know, and
Or a
I think
court
where we are
case.
now, I think we've got the really is the best lineup across the board. I think we've got us three old timers and we've got two youngsters.
Yeah,
we give
holding
them,
us up.
yeah, give us the rhythm section, and they're amazing players. And on this record, you know, they really got to play on it, really, because normally we get like a session drummer in, and it was always a bit messy. But no, the two lads played amazingly on it. Dan and Jiffy, Dan's bass playing is incredible on the record, and Jiffy, and I think it really shows, because the songs have got a lot of space on it. It's just a real performance, and I think, you know,
Yeah, like bottled lightning.
Yeah.
Good.
Now that one, We Are Legend, now that album cover, was that kind of, for some reason, kind of reminded me a little bit of a post-apocalyptic Mad Max kind of a vibe.
Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe, because it's based on, the We Are Legend is based on Legend, the Amiga Man films,
Yes.
and all that kind of stuff. So it's all that kind of, you know, end of the world kind of vibe on it. And we got a guy in Germany does all our covers. Killustrations is the name of the company, and a guy, and he came up with that kind of idea. And if you look on the cover, you can see all the references to Rush and Pink Floyd, and there's a fox on the front, I think it is, which is the sort of Genesis nod, and on the back is Battersea Power Station, and there's all different cryptic sort of
clues,
classic prog bands we rip off, influenced by. Well, that was it, and that was the other thing when we were making the last album, innit? Because when we did We Are Legend, we were like, oh, anything that sounds like Dave Gilmour or Steve Howe or Rick Wakeman or Tony Banks, they're like, no, not allowed. But on the last record, it was like, yeah, come on.
Chuck it in.
But you just enjoyed it. It's again, it's the sort of element of fun where you can just go whatever you want, really, and why not steal from the best, I say.
Yeah, you know, it's got to come out naturally. You know, whatever, however it sounds, if it's a natural sound, that's where you kind of, you know, the formula you stick with. But you know, it's always nice to kind of, you know, you do an experiment of sorts, you know, here and there, you know, just to kind of make sure the listeners are awake, you know, and they're paying attention.
Yeah, so I don't know where we're going to go on the next one. Who knows? Plus, it is that disco record. It could be that.
Disco electronica.
But the key bit, I think, is not to try something that you're not as well. You've got to be really careful, I think. You see some bands go in some certain place and you go, oof. You got to know your limitations, I think, as well. I think so. You can go to these different places, but because there's so many times where you see these, especially with female singers, get on my soapbox again, I think that you get so many of these poor female singers that get drowned in the music and the record, and you can tell that the guitarist is written in a certain key and he's never going to change that key because his guitar solo works in that key. So the poor singer is howling in this rock and it's drowned. I think you've got to have respect for the vocalist.
Yes,
again, you know,
you do.
But it's king. I think, again,
They got to carry it. They got to carry it in the end of the day, haven't they?
It is. That's what people listen to. It doesn't matter what the guitarist thinks or the keyboard player whittling away. In the end, it's the vocal and the song. They're the two things. And they get so boozed in prog. You get a band, they think, oh, we can get it. Just don't worry about the singer. He or she can be anything. They can do anything as long as my guitar solo is loud. Do you know what I mean? Like, or my keyboard solo is whittling away. But again, that's great for other musicians to listen to and to say, oh, how clever you are. But for your partners and your wives to like it, And for it to cross over, you've got to have a tune. You got to have and the singer is the person up front, and it's all on them. So you've got, it doesn't matter how much it hurts you to having to change the song at the last minute. Having spent months making this song sound amazing in a certain key. If the singer comes in and can't sing it, you've got to change the song, and they've got to be comfortable so that they can give their best performance. Otherwise, you're going to knacker the vocalist, and when you come to play it live, you're going to be screwed, and then it'll all be revealed, and you'll have an upset singer, and you don't want that.
Yeah, that's the one thing it's mostly in mainstream pop music that they do it on the vocals, where they add all these unwanted effects to their voice to make it interesting. And it's like, to me, it's like, focus on their vocals. Maybe they will be interesting if you focus on the vocals. Maybe some of them are just going, oh, well, I'll just sit back and just, hum out a tune, and they'll just fix it, in the remixes and mixes of, mastering part of it. They'll fix it all up. I don't have to give my effort. Whereas, bands, prog bands in particular, you are paying attention to, if you have a vocalist in the band, you are paying attention to them. And so it's like, I mean, you do have some effects, but the effects aren't affecting the vocals that are coming out.
The performance,
They're,
yeah.
You hear them, it's like if you put like some sort of the basic effects, like reverb and things like that, you're still hearing the natural vocals, but some of the the dance music there,
all the auto-tune.
Auto-tune.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you could have the most horriblest voice on the planet, but you go through that auto-tune and you're just absolutely perfect. Too perfect. I think the whole point, is that it's not a perfect voice.
That's what the performance you are, I think. But,
and it's also the same. It's also the same with instruments. Some of the best performances, especially in rock, have had a lot of mistakes in it. But for someone like myself, I don't really hear them unless I'm paying attention to it that much. If someone said, well, look what happened here on the solo, I didn't do it right. And then you go and listen to it closer and you go, oh, okay, now I understand. But for the casual listener, they wouldn't have known that. And then if you go in and, like on, live albums in the past, you couldn't fix a lot of things. It was almost like as is. Whereas now the live albums, you're able to fix things, and sometimes some bands go a little too far and make it studio sounding. I don't remember who it was. It wasn't you guys, but I remember who it was that that they took out the audience sound completely.
Oh no, you wouldn't do that. But
he took it out, and I'm like, going, that's not a live album. That's just. That almost sounded like they were playing it live in the studio,
It's a fine line, that is all that. I think you've got to leave the performance in, but you can't leave, I think people won't accept the bum note, really. I think most people would go back in, at least tweak, or, if it's something really, or if someone broke a string or something happened, or you fell off the keyboard or whatever, or if you had a cold, you're going to want to do something. If something happens, or you swallow a fly when you're singing, it doesn't anything in it. But
or a Jack Daniels goes down the wrong way or something.
Yeah.
What's it? Yeah.
Well, for those things, I can understand. But then when someone is really nitpicky about, you know, oh, my, you know, I needed something else here. You know, it's like,
Yeah, but I think people are used to music being, because it can be fixed. I think over a generation, people have used to perfection in music.
Mm.
It's really hard to not do it because it's so easy to repair stuff, really. But you know, on the days of bands being in the same room and recording is gone, basically. So that's something we're going to try and do next on the next record, is to try and actually get in the room and play as
We
one.
want to be together.
We
Yeah.
do want to record something together
Yeah.
and argue,
Yeah.
have a temper tantrum.
you know, don't you get when you're recording together as opposed to apart, but when you're recording together, you know, it's, I think it's, you get a sense, you can see, you know, right there, that's, you know, there's Christina and there's Chris, and then the other, you know, everybody's in there. So it's like you can communicate instantly with them as to your idea of what you want to go. Whereas if everybody's in, you know how some bands have members in different countries,
Yeah.
you know, that makes it more difficult because you have to wait until, okay, I'm going to send the file to this person and I got to wait for them to listen to it, put their thing onto it, and then send it back and then see if it actually fits, you know.
But most records are made like that these days, to be honest, just because of financial, you know, the cost of going into a proper studio. And it's a bit of a lost art, really. But the other thing you do, I think when you're playing as one, you put less overdubs on it because you can hear it, the finished picture. When you're all, if you're playing as a band, it's like a live performance. And I think that's why some of our live stuff sounds better than the studio, because there's not a million keyboards on it or guitars and stuff, because you just have the sound. There's enough stuff going on. And I think that, you know, when you're in a room recording, like back in the olden days, you wouldn't need all. You listen to like Yes and Genesis. There's very few overdubs on it. It's the band playing in the room. They'd had a few double tracks and backing vocals, but it would never be this multi-layered. And that's the thing with file sharing. You end up with hundreds of tracks and trying to sift through it and trying to squeeze it all on there. You know, and so that's definitely something that I think we would going to try and do on the next project, is to get in a room and try and capture that, really. I think
Kind of like the live in studio, you know, you're right there, you know.
Yeah, and as you said, you can change things quickly if someone does something on the drums, because that's the problem. You normally record the poor drummer does his drummer to the roughs first, and those drums are carved in stone then, and then you build on that to make the rest of the record. By the end of it, you might have a completely different, you might need a different drum part on it, you mean, and it's really hard to go back then. But yeah, I think there's definitely something about having everyone in the room.
Yeah.
Let's say it's been so long since we've done it.
Yeah. I think dynamics as well. You get dynamics coming into it a bit more then as well, I suppose, isn't it? You're reacting a bit more to what's going on around you and playing more as a unit to get that kind of foundation, isn't it? Like the good old days.
Like the good old days. Yeah, I was telling, you know, speaking of the good old days on cassette, I used to have a friend of mine that he always, whenever he bought whatever the newest cassette album that came out, and, you know, MTV, they would play the videos. So he would only fast forward to those songs. And it's kind of in the same way as, you know, the Spotify, where people only listen to certain songs and they don't want to listen to the rest of the album. That, you know, they only want to listen to the hit songs or the songs that videos were made for. And it's like, I was always like, you know, so dumbfounded when he did that. He was rewinding, fast forwarding just to those certain songs, you know. I'm like, oh, what about the rest? Oh, I don't care about them. It's like, then you should have bought the singles, you know. That's the case. And for me, you know, I before 1980, the music I only listened to was whatever my parents had on the car stereo, or whatever you heard in the grocery stores and places like that. I didn't really care about it. But then when my friend on my 14th birthday gave me Permanent Waves, that's when I started caring about music. I was like it took me another decade to really fully get into progressive rock, and it wasn't really until about 15 years ago that I really started seeing, I was always had like what I call a tunnel vision of music styles that I was into. I would only listen to that style and then drown out everything else. And now I'm finally, 15 years ago, I just started, because of, Facebook and the internet, people are recommending things, left and right, and I'm getting things that I should have listened to when it originally came out in the late 70s and into the 80s that I never got around to. I keep on hearing friends of mine from when they were 10 years old in the mid 70s listening to all these classic albums. And at that time, I didn't care about that. That wasn't an important thing. But later on, I found out like caring more about it until the point where now I'm, my shelves are like overloading on stuff. People telling me, "Oh, you got to get this, that," and it's like, it's just, it's like get so many. You ask for a recommendation, one recommendation, and you get 10. And it's like, and that's why I love getting CDs, because I get all these. I can go to it, especially like, box sets. I got the 3 Genesis box sets where I can go to them, anytime. I got Bruford box set. I got Def Leppard, Judas Priest. I got all different kinds. I have 2 of the Jethro Tull, the Stephen Wilson, those little books that he has. These things where it's like 4 CDs and 4 DVDs or something like that, where it's like piled, extra stuff, So it's like, and of course, then I got one from a smaller band like Frost, where they put out their all their albums on one, except for their newest one, but they put that, and I'm like going, I can't believe that, an independent band was able to do something of that magnitude. And the thing is, I found that in my local CD store. I didn't order it online or anything. And I couldn't believe that it was in. And I never really, up until that point, I never really thought that my CD store would have had any kind of, modern progressive rock in it. So it's like, I'm sure I'll probably go back and maybe I'll have some of your albums there, which would be pretty cool. Then I can tell people that I know locally, it's like, hey, here's a good band. Buy these.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's I like, me, I like getting recommendations, and I like giving recommendations, and I like with this show, I like to spotlight bands that I think more people should know, and hopefully, I'm achieving that in some fashion, and it's like I really, I do it. I think 20, almost 25 shows so far doing these things. They're absolutely fun because I get to talk to bands that I love their music, and it's like I really appreciate that you guys took the time to come out and to do this, because I think normally if it wasn't a pandemic, I think it would have been harder to get a hold of you guys.
I don't know. I think we all enjoy and are grateful, I think, for people who are interested in the music and stuff. So it's good for us to actually, when you're putting records out, to get feedback, especially, instant feedback, because you see stuff online and things, but it's good to have actual contact with the people, So
definitely speak to some real people.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
I said before, we're very lucky, I think, with this genre of music, really, that we're allowed to be able to do this kind of stuff and play and make records, and people want to buy it, enjoy it, and hopefully it's a two-way thing. So we
and repeated enjoyment, because I was going, when I contacted Christina, and she told me that you two guys were going to join her, and I was like, I said, well, I'm going to go back and let's go back to the beginning and listen to it all over again, just so I can get refreshed. So it's like, I think that's one of the amazing things about, for me, the physical media is you pick up the CD, put it in your player, open up the booklet, and, if you can see, if there are lyrics in there, or if there's liner notes, whatever the band has put into those booklets, those booklets are there to be read. They didn't just put them in there just because, I think it'll look nice. Like, they put it in there to be read. So it's like, and sometimes you read it, and then, and then when you read it again, you may have missed something. It's just the same as when you listen to music. Sometimes you listen to it the first time, and then you put it away, and then time goes on, and you go and listen to it again, and then it's like all of a sudden you hear something you missed the first time. And that's one of the things I love about progressive rock. You can't say that you know exactly what's going on in a song on one listen.
No,
because there's so many things going on. You got the music, and you got the lyrics, and so it's pay attention, and then when you got the lyrics in front of you to read them along, you kind of get the story behind it, and that's where I'll tell you with that song, "The Warning." That's one of those songs that when I listen to it, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. I just get, it's like, how do you say, whatever you guys went into, lyric wise and everything, and the whole mood of the song, it got to me,
It got some bold chord choices in there, so hasn't it? It's really, and I think when I listened to that first album, I think as well, I think it's that innocence of, I don't know, obviously Rob writing it, but it's that kind of thing where whether it was the first one, is that innocence of like, just going to go wherever it feels right, and that's like a typical example of that. It's like when you, as a musician, we call it, I mean, as a listener, you're thinking, it's taking me on a journey, and it makes you feel certain ways, but then as a musician as well, you listen to it and maybe playing it and thinking, my God, I would never go from that to that, to that chord. But it works, doesn't it? And it works really well.
Well, that whole Revolutions album was, as I said, was a complete, because me and Tina had been through the mill for about 12 years or 10 years trying to be pop stars, and it nearly killed us. So the idea of making the prog album was like, well, if you're going to make a prog album, let's make it real, a real prog album, and especially at the time, back in early
Yeah.
2000,
Yeah.
prog was a swear word. All the bands that are now jumping on the bandwagon were like, oh, we're not prog, because prog was such, nobody wanted to be prog back in those late 1990s. Nobody wanted to go near it. It was a dirty word. And we made that first album. I thought, well, let's make it a double album full of ridiculous concept and, you know, full of moogs and everything. And it was totally against everything that was going on, really. And but we found an audience for it. And now
I think there's some bands that are kind of leaning towards that, you know, or artists are leaning towards the, you know, prog is a dirty word, you know, and it's like,
it was back then. It's not so much
Yeah.
now. It's cool as a cucumber.
yeah, and I was like going, you know, we had these people, you know, that were like, I mean, one person that I remember very strongly was Robert Fripp. Didn't want to be, you know, the prog was like a dirty word for him, you know, and it's like, it's what you basically were part of the start of the whole movement, and then now you're like going, you hate it, you know. It's like,
What's different now is people realize that most progressive rock fans, they're the ones that are prepared to pay 70, 80 quid a ticket to go and see these bands. And so they all of a sudden they're the best friends, do you know what I mean? And value prog, whole genre. And if anything, what's weird is now 20 years on is that what is classed as prog, it's gone full circle, where I open up and I see a lot of prog bands. I think, God, they're not prog bands. They're heavy metal bands that couldn't get a gig in a heavy metal venue, or an indie band that couldn't get a record deal on an indie label. So they'll jump on the prog bandwagon because they know people have got money to buy CDs, and are all happy to wave this flag of prog, really. And so again, that was part of making the last album, The Masters of Illusion, was to make to go back to the prog roots, because I thought it was starting to get really diluted, the whole prog thing, into like, there was bands I would think they're
all
not
at it.
prog, they're an indie band, they're a rock band, you know. A good light, not enough light on Tina.
Sorry, honestly, we got bulbs that are going to blow and it's flickering, and that's why I just have to call Mike up to try and switch it off.
You're super bright now, you are.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There you are.
Anyway, what were you saying? It sounded
I was
really
talking English on my soapbox. But it is, so yeah. So prog's it's quite a healthy place at the moment, but you could do with a bit more moog and a bit more bass pedals, but then you get into an argument, what is prog? But we won't. Even but yeah.
I think now it's like we have such a wide range of prog, anywhere from what they would call progressive pop to the progressive metal. So it's like, and then so much in between, So it's like I think there's more to the genre than there was 20 years ago, And like you were saying, the dirty word, it's like, I always kind of laughed at the people that, that said, oh, that prog's a dirty word, I don't like it, It's like, well, if you don't like it, give me all your CDs, I said, it'll be a welcome addition to my collection, that, if you're no longer a fan of the music, and it's like, what was it? A few years back, I think, or maybe 15 or so years back, Rick Wakeman did 2 albums, Retro and Retro 2, where he got out those old keyboards and he made albums made with those old keyboards that he hadn't touched for 20 some odd years at that point. And it's like, I honestly think the old equipment sometimes sounds a lot better than the fully digital stuff, because there's more warmth to it, and especially when I interviewed this one female keyboardist that she does videos for Moog, and she has the different setups, and it's just amazing. I mean, she's not one of those keyboard wizards, but she's one of those ones that does a lot of texturing. You know, almost I would almost say that they're kind of like each song is like a soundtrack to something. You know, almost like a movie soundtrack, but you know, it's not, and it's like. And I told her, I said, it's just so amazing that, you know, I don't know half of those instruments that you're playing, but when I close my eyes and just listen to the music, it's like, it just takes me to a happy place.
Mm.
And that's what a lot of, you know, prog music does, is it just, I can close my eyes, listen to it in the headphones, and just takes me to that really happy place, you know, whether it's, you know, if it's a futuristic place or if it's a mythological place, it doesn't matter, or even if it's talking about something that happened in your backyard. You know, it's just the storytelling behind progressive rock that is to me is the biggest draw. You know, I'll go back to one of the first times that I listened to "Selling England" by The Pound. I was a late bloomer. I didn't hear it the first time around. Didn't even hear it in the 80s. I heard it early 90s, and I couldn't believe I missed out on this thing. And I was so glad when I got it. And but it just is the journey's not only lyrics but with the music. You know, just I can't get enough of it. So when I get a new progressive rock album, I put it in the player and I put it on the headphones, because for me I like it that way, because I can get all the sounds into me. It's not, you're not getting it from a speaker, and the stuff kind of dissipates a little, not really, but it just kind of dissipates by the time it gets to your ears, and you got other distractions. So it's like I like to listen to it in headphones. So it's like, especially when when I got those last two of your CDs, it's like I like to listen to it. Yeah, and then to go and listen to it in my car is kind of cool, because you can turn it up and I mean, I've had some when I pull up on the stop light, you get some weird looks from people opposite cars. It's like no, I'm not listening to your to what you're listening to. You're going to listen to what I'm listening to. It's like
yeah.
That's
I think music means a lot to people. I think, especially during this pandemic. With the last album, I think I really thought, do we release it? It was always an argument of like, would people have any money to buy it? Would they be interested in it? Would it be the right time to release albums? And it was. I think it really landed. That people wanted music. It was a distraction. It was a comfort, and it did really well. And I think we had a captive audience, really, to listen to it and to really give time to to take in the detail of it as well, really. But there is the problem, as you said, of lots of records being released and people finding time to give them more than one listen. But no, it definitely worked, and I think I think we forget how much, from a band point of view, how much the music actually means for people, how much it impacts people.
And with me, for music, like I said, I meant a lot to me, and then with some of my health issues, starting in 2015, it meant more to me, and it had more of a healing power to it, because in 2015 I had what's called a mini stroke, and that was basically the beginning of the end of I used to do the CD reviews online on my website, prognaut.com. And at that point, I couldn't concentrate anymore. So it was like, that was the end of that. And every time after that, that I had sort of a medical issue, you know, a life-threatening one, music has always been there to heal me. And, you know, people were saying, you know, thought that I was being corny about it, but I'm like, no, honestly, it's like it's like a friendly place that you can go to that very rarely disappoints you, you know. And it's like you know, when I go, you know, during the week to dialysis, I have my headphones on, and if I'm always listening to something, you know, just to make that time go quicker, and my friends are always like going, why are you in such a good mood? And I said, because the alternative would make things a lot worse. So it's like, you know, music has really, honestly, for the past 6 years, more than any time before, has carried me on to the next day, you know. And it's like you know, like with you guys, I do appreciate the music because I do go to it. You know, I got a lot to go to, but I do go to it, and just makes life better. It really does. And it's like I really do appreciate that. You know, it's like I've never met you guys in person, but I feel, and someone was saying it the other time that I was talking to him, like there is more of a kinship between prog bands and prog fans than there is mainstream music, because I think prog bands care a lot more about the people than, you know, than mainstream music do. You know, because you know, you're not. It's not like with mainstream where it's like a popularity contest, whereas, you know, everything is like superficial. It's like, you know, you guys generally, you guys care about your fans, you know, and that's what Andy was saying. You know, it's a give and take thing, you know.
Yeah, and I think definitely see that, especially with like the concerts. It's definitely a kind of we're all in it together kind of thing, you know, with us and the audience. You know, we're hopefully doing our best to play it right, isn't it? And do it some justice. But you know, and then the audience just seems to really appreciate it, and you can see they're all listening and intently or singing along and things like that. And after the concerts as well, they've taken the time to come along and support and to the concert. But even, you know, they're happy to chat after as well, and they want to, you know, and discuss it, the gig, and you know, future releases, or you know, they want to buy in some merchandise and all the stuff that goes with it as well. So, you know, we appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, you know, especially, you know, like at the, you know, on the West Coast, they had the Prog Fest from '93 up to 2000, and all of those, it was just like after the band, whatever band was playing, the minute everybody rushes to the merch tables, and you know, you hear all this chatter, and it's just amazing when you go to the band's merch tables, and just how a lot of the bands are like so happy to talk to the fans. I mean, I've seen some that were like, you know, it's like, you know, stay away, you know, but it's like, you know, for the most part, all the bands are so happy to hear what their fans saying, commenting on something of a studio album or commenting on the show that they just witnessed, anything like that. And it's just, it's something that you don't see on those big arena tours. They got their merch tables, but it's like, the bands are never there, or if they are there, they're gonna, they're gonna charge you an arm and a leg, just for a hello, nothing else. But that's one of the things that when I'm able to get back, and also when it's allowed, for festivals to open back up again. I think Rossfest is coming back in next year, and also that Cruise to the Edge. I'm not so fond of boats, so I don't know if I would go on a boat to see a concert, but Rossfest, or if there's someone puts up something in anywhere between Maine and Florida, that's a good 2,000 to 3,000 miles, I believe. A bit of a distance to drive. Once that gets back into play, I know a lot of you guys, the bands, are so very eager to get back because a lot of their concert, their touring were canceled, and they were relying on that solely because there's some prog bands that they're 100%, that's their job. That's how they're making their money. There's others that, like a band like IQ, that is like a part-time band because they put out an album every 4 or 5 years. So it's like, there's in betweens, kinds of bands, so it's like, and I'm sure you guys are eager to get back out on the road.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, definitely, yeah. To play the last album live is even, isn't it? That's that's been out a year now. We haven't
Got to relearn it all. That's the thing.
Everything. This time next year.
Yeah.
Hopefully next year. Hopefully the end of this year.
Yeah.
There are a few places that are, scarcely out here in the United States that I'm hearing that are opening up, but limited at the before the vaccines, to a limited audience. But then now with the vaccines, here in my state, they have areas that you can go without a mask, but you have to be vaccinated. For me, I'm to the point where I'm always going to wear the mask wherever I go, unless I know who the person is that is, and they're vaccinated. Because I think when I won't wear one is when seeing the news broadcast when there's 0 new cases and 0 deaths for at least a few months, And I think there was only one country that actually did it right through the pandemic. It was New Zealand. But they're such a small country that they were able to do it. I think if all the other countries would have followed that, what they did, a complete lockdown. We did have lockdowns, but they were very laxed. They weren't enforced. But I think in New Zealand they were enforced. So it's like, I think if we would have done that from the beginning, I think we would have been done. This year we would have been hearing, concerts starting in January instead of maybe October. maybe November, you know. There's some bands that are doing some, you know, select dates in October and November, but nothing on a full scale.
Fingers crossed, it should be next year.
I think next year is going to be the year that, you know, we get back to the you know, that's what I loved hearing on Facebook, is everybody talking about concert they went to the night before, you know, either they'll have pictures or they'll show the picture of the t-shirt that they bought, or, you know, or like in the old days when you remember when bands had their tour booklets, you know, things like that. I mean, I don't think many bands do that nowadays.
No, it's not programs now. The big bands.
We did one, didn't we, for the last?
We did this for the anniversary one, didn't we? I think we did.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I tried to do it, but yeah. Well, the new album's got a nice little book. Look, a nice little book comes with it.
Look at that.
Let me sell my wares now.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Quality.
Derek Trotter of
Look at that.
Yeah, a nice 4-disc set. A nice 51-page booklet as well.
Oh,
Who's that? Who's that? Anybody we recognise?
we got.
No idea.
Oh, hello.
Mr. Fry showing off. Looks like you're doing some ballet.
Some moves.
Well, there it is.
Busting some moves. Magenta disco.
We're up to, yeah, doing the Superman.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be the one for people to get if it's been released. It's not to be
It's the
released.
end of the month. It's it's all our greatest hits on there. And we got guests. We got old David Longdon from Big Big Train. He's singing on it. I'm doing Spectral Mornings of all things. That hit. A short tune.
From our 20th anniversary show.
It was very good.
Yeah.
2.5 hours. Quality.
Good. Yeah. You know, well, you know, I'll definitely put the link down below when I put it up on YouTube so people can pre-order it.
Okay. Yeah. I'll send you a copy. You can have a listen to it. I'll send you a digital link to it. You can have a listen.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, of course, I'll wind up buying a physical thing as well. You know, I like to support the bands as much as possible.
That's good.
Thank you.
Cheers. Yeah. Thanks.
We got the 20th anniversary live thing.
Yeah.
Chris is having something in a few weeks, you said, or
Maybe
or should we say
months.
this year? Few months.
This year. Yeah.
This year. And then something from Christina this year, or
Yes.
Yeah, towards the end of the year, definitely.
so you know.
Play a bit now.
Hold on.
There you
Oh,
go.
hang on. You little tease, Mr. Fry, you are.
He has his props everywhere.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
He does.
What else you gonna bring up?
This is where the magic happens. We haven't got.
Don't make me laugh too much. I'm gonna have to go to the toilet.
There's the magenta guitar. That's the one.
Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful.
No, that's the one on everything on the
Quality.
everything from the last
Quality guitar.
20 years probably on that.
Quality guitar. Like nothing to show, really.
I think they should.
Got something on behind you. There you go.
Good
Oh,
day.
nice hat. Nice.
My stage gear.
Yeah.
How come we've all got props? The only thing I've got is my rubber gloves for my washing out.
To mention that.
They'll be on the next show, the next concert.
Good luck. Yeah.
Love of love.
You can call it, this is your ode to the pandemic.
Yay.
Yeah. So yeah, lots to come up, lots of new stuff.
Oh yeah.
All right, well, I guess we'll leave it right here, and thank you, all three of you, for taking the time
Well, thank you.
to sit down and
Thank you
talk
for
with me.
having us.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks for having us.
And it's nice to actually, you know, I hear Christina's voice on the albums, but I never really heard the voice except for on some of the concert clips, you know, saying little things here and there. But it's nice to actually, you know, to see what Rob looks like and what Chris looks like, you know, and to talk with you guys. It was I had a lot of fun, and it was you know, to quote this one famous, it was fantastic.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Ron.
you.
and
No,
thanks
you're
for
welcome.
supporting the music.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you,
You know, love the music, so you know, I'll always be supported.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Well, thanks again, and I'll be looking out for that digital thing, but also you'll look out for when it comes out. You know, I'll be buying the physical box.
Brilliant. And I'll see you two,
Yeah.
Troubles down there. I'll see you very soon.
Yes.
Ursula, I think I'll be next.
Hey, well, thank you again.
No problem. Cheers, Rob.
Thank you.
All right, I'll
Thanks.
talk to you soon then.
Yeah, we'll do.
Cheers.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Buenas noches.